Hey folks, Small Designs here, and this is part 2 of the Tamiya 135th scale M4A1 76W build. So if you've watched part 1, you know what we're talking about, but if you're just coming into this video here, we are converting this M1 Super Sherman into M4A1 76W tank. So we're obviously backdating it to a World War II version of this tank here. So we've made a lot of progress, as you can tell. We've got a lot of little bits and pieces on, so it's pretty much ready for the paint shop now. The only thing it's requiring is the paint itself, and you know, I'm all out of this color, but we're getting close to Christmas. I'm going down to see the folks, so that means I'm going to be resupplying, which is fantastic. So that means a lot of my other builds that have been sitting on the shelf can get some attention too when we return. But we're talking about this today. So we obviously got the barrel in, as you can tell, so we're going to talk about that. We got all the little pieces on, you know, obviously the turret's good to go. But so we're going to talk about tracks, we're going to talk about the pieces that we put in, we're going to talk about the road wheels, and you're wondering what these pieces are. This is some of the extra pieces. This kind of would have come in handy. See these little, you know, pieces that are sticking out? This here, that little piece that's sticking out there, would have come in handy for right in where the putty is. So had I kind of really dug through the box a little bit more, I would have actually used, you know, this here, and that would have taken away the use for putty, at least on that one section. But so this would have helped. So but I mean, I used the putty anyway, and I noticed in my other M4 boxes with the same kind of hull setup, it's not so much for the Easy 8 tanks, but if you're building the older, you know, M4s, which I'll do a video on some of the other M4 tanks, you'll get these pieces, and that'll save you, you know, at least one step with the putty, because these are in there. But the instructions don't show it at all. Right? They just show you to use that. So you kind of got to, you know, pay attention. But because we're obviously doing not this tank, you know, I'm more concerned with trying to convert this into an M4A1, you know, 76. So this never really crossed my mind. So, and I didn't even see them in there, right? But so heads up. So if you're kind of, you know, following these videos, you might want to consider looking at those before gluing those ones on. But the putty works fine. By the time we get everything else on there, the road wheels and this, and then the tracks, you're not even going to see too much of that. And then we're going to throw mud in there. You know, whatever. And then, of course, you know, the tracks, we'll talk about that for a second. Now, you only get one set in your model, right? But because I own a bunch of other M4 models, you know, there's different tracks here, right? So these ones came with this one here, and then I pulled these ones out of an older M4 model. So now, of course, you know me, I like to buy aftermarket tracks, and I didn't for this one. I might actually just use the rubber ones for this build, because I actually only have aftermarket tracks for the suspension for like the Easy 8 tanks, the HVSS. I do have a set of aftermarket tracks for, you know, the M4, early M4s, and it doesn't really apply to this one so much, because I actually want to use something like this, which will be fine. So I'm going to make a decision, you know, do I want to use this or this, you know? It's not really that much of a difference, right? So you can tell right there, and I don't mind mix and matching tracks. So maybe I'll switch it up. Maybe I'll take, you know, these ones instead of this and throw this in a different tank. That way my model looks completely different than what was offered in the box. So something to consider too. So now this metal barrel, it didn't go in as smoothly as I would have liked. Now, obviously, if you go back to part 1, you know I shaved off that little metal piece you know, right there, right, because this was originally meant, you know, to accommodate that, you know, the flash suppressor, I'll call it, for right there. So I shaved that off, but I didn't actually end up putting it in this way. I had to do a lot of cutting and shaving on the inside there, and then really basically with my sanding tool, I sanded it on the inside, you know, in there. Basically, I shoved this inside there and just, you know, in there, sanded it, and then took the barrel before I glued this piece in. I actually should have did a video on that, but it's just the way the timing worked. And then put the barrel in this way, and then, you know, basically pushed and pushed and pushed. I'll just take this off from the inside. Let's see if I can get some light in there. And, you know, basically pushed until I got it into position. And you got to be careful not to break the plastic. If you look at the light catches it, you see the white. I don't know if it's picking it up. You know, when you stress the plastic so much, it starts to turn white. It was getting to that point. Now, I did get the barrel into the correct position just before, you know, it was putting too much stress on the plastic. But I wanted it tight. I didn't want, you know, the barrel to be loose inside there. So I did get it, and I got the correct, you know, spacing for the barrel. So it's just something to consider if you want to go for aftermarket, or just use. You could get away with using that barrel too. But I wanted to be different. It did work out in the end, so I'm happy. And we got the turret on. A little bit of sanding needs to go, you know, where I glued. Not too much. So I don't mind a little bit of spillage. Actually, we'll just keep that off for now. I don't mind a little bit of glue seepage because it will simulate, you know, where the weld seam, you know, goes. But as you can tell, we got all the little pieces on now. You know, right to the rear. As you can see, there's some pieces that you do got to get off, which is here. There's little, you know, clamps. You know, those come off. If it's a little messy, don't worry, because once you get paint on it, and then when you go to simulate mud and dirt and such like that, it'll be all hidden. So, unless you're going for a brand new factory floor clean tank. So as you can tell, a lot of these pieces aren't glued on yet. So I'm not going to glue this on yet because I need paint to get into there. So I'll paint this separate. But just for the, you know, the sake of the video. And of course I didn't want to glue on the hatches because I don't know how I want to pose this model quite yet. As you can see where the white is, that's where I used putty. Because, you know, those pieces aren't there for this variant of tank. So moving on to the road wheels. With Tamiya models, at least for the last one I built and this one, they got a nasty seam line that goes right down the center of each and every wheel. Now luckily with you know, the earlier M4s, they don't have that many wheels, so not that many to sand. But I always use a more of an aggressive grit, especially with these models here, like the M4s, because they tend to be, you know, more heavily used. So I don't mind, you know, making the wheels look a little more, you know, road used, I guess you can say. That's not the proper English, but you get what I'm trying to get at. And then for these pieces here, they call for no glue. I assume, you know, these might be able to, you know, it says right there, no glue. Now, obviously, they got the poly cap in there, so, you know, once, you know, they attach to the tank, you know, they're going to be in there pretty tight. But I'm assuming that that's so to accommodate the track better. So, no glue. And then these here for the, you know, the idler wheels, they call for this one, and I don't know, these are spares. I haven't figured out where those go yet. The instructions don't show. So I sanded them, smoothed them anyway. So we'll figure that out later. That's what I mean by extra parts. just being in the box. And then of course we got those pieces there. Now I did take them off. They are numbered. You just got to pay attention, you know, to where they attach, so you don't get them backwards. Normally I like to have all that together and then, you know, have them nice and sanded and, you know, glued before I apply paint. But the way they attach, there's no way to do it because the wheels will have to be pre-painted. But that's okay. Again, once we get, you know, all the dirt and mud and stuff on there, you'll never see that seam line. So really, it's at the point now where we're just waiting for paint. And once we get it, you know, painted, we can, you know, make sure that all these three halves, I'm going to call them the three halves, you know, the lower hull, the main hull, and then the turret are glued, and then we get the, you know, the tracks and everything on. And then it's just a matter of detailing and deciding how we want to pose this tank. It's you know, fairly fast after that. And then we'll have you know, a unique tank that's was never really offered by Tamiya. So it's going to be a fun one to do once we decide, you know, where we want to, you know, pose this, how we want to pose this, like we did with our Easy 8. We kind of did like an early winter scene in the woods. That was fun. So we'll see how we want to pose this one. You know, I'm open to ideas. So there we go. I guess the next video will show off some of the Tamiya models that are out there for M4s, and I'm thinking of doing a King Tiger model. We haven't seen any German tanks on the channel, and I think that would be a lot of fun to see. So thanks so much for watching. That's part 2, and yeah. Please like, share, and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye.